in our sales process or in our recruitment process, it's not this like straightforward thing with this horrible application that takes 6 hours to write down. And then the person has to like tell you why working for you is the greatest thing in the history of the world when they have no idea yet. One of my pet peeves on applications is, why do you want to work for us? And someone has to put out this like fake 500-word essay on why they care. Like, they don't care yet. They have no idea. They just want to make money. And so in reality, build that into your process. Like when we're getting on with people, it's ask different questions. Like, what makes you tick? What makes you happy? What makes you...
Welcome to the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host. And you're welcome to the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, everyone. So, as always, I'm very excited to be here with you with another amazing episode and another amazing guest that I have here for the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment podcast. And I just can't wait to dig deep into my guest here and just get to pick his brain to see how he has managed to conquer himself, his life, his marriage, and his business. But before I actually introduce him to you, really quick, I just want to give a big shout out to everyone who has been leaving comments and reviews on the major podcasting platforms, the Apple one, the Google one, the Spotify, and to those who have been watching on YouTube as well. Thank you very much. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share it with one person. Since this is how we grow, this is how we spread our message, and this is how we inspire and motivate and bless other gentlemen to level up their lives. So 99% of you probably won't do that, but the 1% of you who do are the ones who make all the difference. So to you, I say thank you. And let's get started. So today, I have a very special gentleman. His name is Chandler Walker. And he's a husband, a father, and an amazing entrepreneur. He has been able to scale multiple businesses from scratch to 7 figures. One of them was Stone Age Fuel, which is a health and wellness coaching company, helping people with six areas: mental, social, sleep, fitness, and habits. And now he's running a coaching business, helping coaches and consultants. It's called the Compassion Conversations Coaching, which he helps coaches and consultants scale their coaching businesses through compassion and care. Right. So I also was, seeing his Facebook and his photos and everything. And I think he was into jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, weightlifting, which are all things that I'm also into right now. So I'm really excited to get to talk to this gentleman right here who has been able to make it big in business, as well as be a leader and an example as a husband and father. So I can't wait to talk to him, get to dig deep into what he has, what he's all about, and get to call this work. So Chandler, welcome, man. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to talk and excited to give people some value and some information, and hopefully nobody falls asleep and glazes over while we're talking.
Yeah, I don't think so. So, man, the first thing that I like to do with my guests, as soon as they come in, is I like to put them on the line and tell them to tell us a little bit about themselves and describe their entrepreneurial journey from the beginning to now in 60 seconds or less.
Yeah, so I grew up with a mom who was bipolar and a dad who owned a business. And so I got to see the sort of mental health and the struggles growing up, which led me to a path of sort of pursuing med school and really deciding that I wanted to change people's lives in the process. But what I figured out along the way was it was more about like giving people pills and prescribing. You weren't really able to provide help in a holistic fashion. So after I was done precepting, I realized that the med school route really wasn't for me. So I broke off, and because my father was an entrepreneur, I was a little more confident in just diving headfirst into what I wanted to do. And so I jumped out, started off with a brick and mortar gym. First year, I basically lived in the gym. So we learned a lot of lessons in growing that. Eventually was able to scale the gym, then moved the programs inside the gym to the 6 Pillars program online. And then through my own madness and torment, I realized that the coaching industry is so ripe with basically manipulation and aggressive tactics. And so I wanted to change that. And that's when Compassion Conversations was born, where we help coaches grow and scale without manipulation, without aggressive tactics, and without all of the stuff that we're taught to do that really isn't ethical in terms of trying to enroll new clients.
Cool. And well, you nailed it. So see, like I really like this 60-second conversation, like introductions, because now like I have a lot to talk about and I get to like pick like which one is, the first thing that I want to talk about. And the first thing that I want to ask you about, man, is so you didn't like, like that the health and wellness industry was all about like giving people pills and wanting to fix everything, quick fixing everything with a pill, which is really awesome because I just saw an interview with this guy. He's Tony Robbins' friend. They both do like masterminds and stuff. I don't remember his name, but he wrote the book Success, Millionaire Success Habits, right? And he talks about going upstream, right? Going upstream. So instead of like taking a pill to relieve, like cholesterol or whatever, you go upstream and you do things differently. And that means, like exercising, changing your diet, changing your habits, right? Which is some of the things that you help people do with the 6 pillars. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So as I was working with people, I think I did a one-on-one sit down with over 2,000 or 3,000 people. And as I was kind of moving them into our health programs, I recognized that there were 6 key pillars and 6 areas that people needed to ultimately be well in order to be able to do this stuff long-term. I kind of realized that the diet and wellness and health industry is more focused on short-term strategies and pills and all this stuff. And so along the way, I realized that the first step was really mental health. So we had to be able to master our mind and master our emotions, or we'd quit on ourselves before we even got started. And then the second thing that I looked at was social health. Once you master yourself, you have to master your ability to communicate and interact with others, because a lot of people would start something, and even if they felt good about themselves, someone would say something and they would feel down and immediately quit. So we had to master our ability to be socially healthy. And then the third thing I looked at was sleep. Sleep will impact your mental health and your nutrition and everything else down the line. So we had to take a look at sleep and really master sleep and remove the paradox of the inability to sleep from people's lives so they can step into the next realm, which is nutrition. And these are in order of importance. And what I figured out was nutrition wasn't as important as sleep, because if sleep wasn't on point, you'd release hormones that tell your body to either eat more or tell your body to eat less. And so we needed to manage and mitigate those hormones. In addition to that, nutrition wasn't going to work if we weren't in line with our mental health and if our social health wasn't in order, because we're going to be out there around people who are going to make fun of diets or any of that stuff. And so we looked at nutrition from creating a sustainable format that doesn't use diet, pills, or restriction, and really uses what's available in your everyday life. And then the last thing we looked at was fitness. So fitness really, in my opinion, isn't that important in losing weight, but it is important in building bone density. So if you want to be able to have longevity in your life and live a long life, you need to maximize your ability to have bone density. And so in fitness, the purpose of that is bone density and enhancing your mental health, while at the same time enhancing your sleep. So if you've gotten all 5 pillars maximized, by the time you hit fitness, it's just going to put the bow on top and the cherry on top of everything else. And then all of that comes together to create effective habits that we can consistently do on a micro level every day that make us better and better each day we move forward.
That was amazing, man. You articulated that so well and so amazing. So like I'm trying to think into how I'm applying this into my life, and you're completely right. You're 100% right. And I don't know if like the people who are listening to this realize this, but like this is all money making talk. Like this is all money making strategies. What do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people who get into business, they get into like this ClickFunnels or this entrepreneur game, but they don't recognize that it's a game of mastering yourself. So the people who are the best in business are the people who are boring. And I know nobody wants to hear that. They want to see Lambos and like fast cars and chicks in bikinis on yachts, but really it's the person who can do the same thing over and over and over again consistently, analyze their behavior and what they're doing, adjust it, and then do it again over and over and over again repeatedly, because that's what produces excellence. And ultimately that's what this process is. It's producing excellence in yourself, which produces excellence in your business.
For a long period of time with consistency until you get that until you catch that curve of exponential results, right? And man, I just love the way that you put all of this, those 6 areas. I have something similar with becoming a gentleman, which are 4 areas, right? physical freedom, which is building and optimizing your mind and body with excellence, right? So then it's emotional and spiritual freedom, right? And those two give you self-mastery, right? It's all about mastering yourself and being able to, well, master yourself and say and do what you say you were going to do. So emotional and spiritual freedom is about knowing who you are, about always remembering who you are and where you are and why you are, and knowing yourself and just knowing and being connected with that inner higher self of you. And then the next one is sentimental freedom, which is, you know, learning how to be an excellent husband and father. And then financial freedom is, well, business, right? And I'm thinking about your six areas, right? Mental, social, sleep, nutrition, fitness, and habits, and it just makes complete sense. Like my daily routine. First of all, it wouldn't be like, even though if I go through all of my habits that I have every single day, which is like meditating, doing the Wim Hof breathing, and taking cold showers, taking my vitamins, taking, you know, drinking water. None of that works, and you're right, without sleep. Like if I get caught up on the hustling and grinding 24/7, and, you know, just try sleeping 5 hours per day and stuff, like I find myself on a Thursday just feeling like shit and wanting to give up on everything because of my sleep. Even if I have all of my habits and I'm eating right and I'm working out and I'm taking my vitamins and taking cold showers and meditating, like none of it works if I don't sleep how I'm supposed to, man. So I just realized this a couple of months ago, and I've been really prioritizing my sleep. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that, man. I think that's gonna be, you know, of a lot of value to all of the hustlers out there who think that they can really perform with 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. It's crazy, and you'll see people like, I'm staying up late, I'm doing all this work, I'm doing my morning routine, I'm exercising, and then you ask about sleep, and they're like, "Oh, my sleep's terrible." And then I tell them, like, so everything you're doing is sort of going to implode on itself, because you're ultimately going to collapse because your inability to sleep. You're going to lose your creativity. You're going to lose your focus. Your exercise is going to produce hormones that cause stress. You're going to end up getting a tired tummy, and it's going to impact you physically, emotionally, mentally, and across the board. So it's incredibly important to remove our idea of this hustle and pray lifestyle and move into the lifestyle of where we master our own domain and we ultimately become present and be well.
And, you know, get habits and build systems around your life that you're going to be able to do, not for one day or 1 week, but for the rest of your life, right? And be able to sustain them long term. And that's amazing. So then you scaled this company, teaching these people about this six areas of health and wellness to seven figures. Can you go into that journey?
Yeah. So the beginning of it, we had the physical location. And the first year, what I figured out was it was incredibly challenging to jump into this thing because I was a young, dumb kid coming out of med school who had no idea how to run or operate a business. So the first year we were like working from, my little sister called me a vampire because she said I only came out at night, which was true because I got up at 4 a.m. and I went to the location by 6, and then I would leave at about 11 p.m. So I was definitely a vampire. And what I learned along the way was, though, you don't need to be doing everything in your business. In the beginning, you are kind of like the jack of all trades, but ultimately over time, you have to learn to replace yourself. You have to be able to not only just, a lot of people say just charge more, but if you charge more and you still run a terrible business, it's just going to be a worse business. Small problems become huge problems as you grow. So what I figured out was, as we transitioned from brick and mortar to an online atmosphere where we could help people globally, was I had to start using systems and use systems to replace myself, automate the things that I didn't need to be personally doing, hire staff to do the things that I shouldn't be doing, and put myself in a place to where I could essentially be CEO, where my job is to think and reinvent the wheel and reinvent the program and reinvent the business. And another fallacy I kind of went through is a lot of people think, oh, just build this thing and then you can go to Tahiti and Bora Bora and drink Mai Tais for the rest of your life and your staff will run your business. It's easy. But in reality, when you do that, you lose touch, you lose connection, your business goes stagnant. And if you don't install a CEO, then your business is going to collapse. So I think the big thing that people need to do is ultimately move themselves into being able to be the thinker of the business, the CEO. Get yourself off the sales desk, off of the client interactions and stuff like that, and move yourself into a place where your job is to think. And the way we started that was just Google Docs, creating SOPs, standing operating procedures. This is how I do this. This is how I do this. Here's the step-by-step on how I do this. Here's the video on how I do this. And then creating job descriptions, hiring people, and ultimately moving yourself. Essentially, you're like, you start off as the janitor and you're essentially promoting yourself along the way as you hire people to CEO.
Yeah. And it's really interesting how like these topics keep on coming up, right? The fact that most entrepreneurs, one of the things that they struggle and that holds them back from scaling their businesses is like that, like ego, right? Like that narcissism that we have, that, you know, we think that we are the ones that are supposed to do everything because it's our idea and we can do it all and only us can do it. But when you get humble, right? And, you know, you act with humility and you realize that other people can do the task that you're trying to do and that you're wasting your time doing, right? When you realize that other people can do it and you actually realize that other people can do it even better than you, and you start delegating and being a leader and promoting yourself to being a thinker, that's when you scale. So yesterday I actually had a conversation and we were talking about the ladder of value, right? So there's four steps, right? The first one is implementators, right? The second one is unificators and managers. The third one is communicators, and the last one is thinker. So the implementators are the ones who are doing all the work. The unificators and managers are the ones who manage all the people who do all the work. The communicators and the coaches, right, are the ones who coach the managers so that they can get the result out of the people. And then on top are people like you, right, the thinkers, the ones who are or the visionaries, who are leading everything and making everything move forward. You know, the problem solver, and that's where we are supposed, as entrepreneurs, that's where we're supposed to put ourselves, right? And like we were talking about yesterday about like how do you get there? So like, I mean, at first you have to do everything, right? You're gonna find yourself doing everything, but like how exactly do you start getting yourself out of everything? And we concluded that it was through sales, selling yourself out of everything. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the way you kind of start removing yourself is you recognize that there's tasks and what I call they're like cheap tasks. So tasks that I shouldn't be doing that are like meaningless, but you have to repeat. And so the first step for me was like, okay, I can automate some of these. And then the second piece of that is, okay, I can hire myself an executive assistant. First step is creating that assistant to take the workload off of these meaningless tasks. Then it's like, okay, well, at this point, I don't think I should be on the sales desk anymore. And then ultimately you're hiring a salesperson. And I do think every step of the way, especially as an entrepreneur, your job is to sell. Initially, your job is to sell the idea of your business to people who will purchase it, buy into it, who want to be part of it. If you're moving into like capital and funding, your next step is to sell yourself to investors so you can get funding for your business or bootstrap it. Then your next step is to sell yourself to staff and continuously sell staff on the dream so they feel attached and connected to it. And to your point, I do think you have to continuously sell staff on the dream, because especially in today's market, when you look at like millennials in the workforce and people who aren't boomers, it's not about working 7 jobs and being miserable and retiring with a house. Right now, for people, it's about working somewhere they can believe in, somewhere they feel proud of, somewhere they feel special, somewhere where they feel connected to. And ultimately, you have to continuously build that into people so they continuously believe in that dream. Because if they don't, they'll quit. They'll go off in la la land and do other things, and you'll start losing staff. You'll see staff retention go way down, which gets really expensive. So I think as a CEO, your job is to think about the business and also think about how to keep the dream alive.
Cool. And which also goes into leadership, right? So you mentioned something really cool, that like leadership has changed. Like leadership is not what it used to be, right? Like you're the boss and you boss people around, and you know, like people are going to work for you and do exactly what you tell them to. Like leadership has changed right now with the new generations that are coming to the workforce, and it's like different. Like you said, like they're looking for something that makes them fulfilled, right? They're looking for something that really they really believed into, and they're looking to work into something that makes them feel like they're having an impact, right? So, as a leader yourself, like how have you noticed that? I don't know, like maybe leadership has changed, or like what say do you have on leadership?
Yeah, I think leadership is changing in terms of the environment. It used to be sort of this like paramilitary leadership thing where you tell people what to do, they do it. If they do it wrong, they get in trouble. But I think we have to shift leadership now into more of like a mentorship environment. So you hire someone, you give them their KPIs, they understand their KPIs. I believe in open book management, so they see all the numbers associated with it. They have the creative ability to adjust and make it better so their numbers get better. And then At the same time, I'm also a big believer in encouraging and celebrating good processes. So if someone does something and it is a disaster, but you look at the process and it was really good, we want to celebrate that, because we want to celebrate this creative thinking, this capability to think in a way to where you ended up with an end result and you had a really good system to set up to build it. If it had a bad result, then we look at, okay, good process, how do we adjust this and make it into a better result? And I think that's something that we're really missing. We don't celebrate processes. We don't celebrate good processes. We only celebrate, or we attack the bad or the good outcome of what's happening. And I think that's the shift in leadership, is going from this paramilitary style thing where you tell people what to do into this mentorship thing where you're helping people understand how to think.
Cool. And praise them and congratulate them if they fail, because they tried to go above and beyond to create something really awesome, right? Like the process and or system that you were talking about, and they failed. Maybe it didn't get the result that we were looking for, but then you think, right? And now you're building leaders who are going to be able to lead other people.
Exactly. And you're teaching people how to be flexible in their thought patterns. And I think that's what we're missing. We often, as leaders, teach, especially leaders and managers, teach people to be drones, like do this, this, and this. If you deviate from it, you get in trouble. But for me, it's like, do this, this, and this. And if you deviate from it, I'm going to be pumped and we're going to talk about it, especially if it was a good process, because I want that free flowing thinking. And I want you to have the ability to step out of the box and reinvent the wheel. Because a lot of the time I do think, and this is a whole nother thing, but I think a lot of the time we think from this top down mechanism, like CEO says something, operations person tells everyone to do it, managers make sure they do it. But in reality, what I want to see is people from the bottom building and making processes better from the ground up. So we'll often have our staff members take a process and tell us how they would improve it, one process a week or one process a month. And then everybody from the bottom up has to look at it and make it better and improve on it. So that way you get leadership that happens from the ground floor, which is really what you need.
Right, which is a conversation that goes into like culture, right? So I'm just curious, like, what do you think about building an awesome culture, right? So like everyone seems to talk about building a company culture, and so I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think
How do you
culture is
build
everything.
culture?
Culture is, and I think a lot of people think it's like, oh, give them kombucha and like fitness memberships and stuff. But culture is creating an environment that people believe in, that people feel respected in, that people feel comfortable speaking in, and creating an environment that allows them to grow internally, and even in our 6 pillars, mentally, socially, physically, in their sleep and everything, and allows them to have that free flow thought and attitude. And I think that's when culture starts to take a nosedive. It's because people feel trapped. They feel like they can't talk. They feel like they'll get in trouble. They get that like corporate thing where they can't say anything or they'll get in trouble. And in reality, I think if you open that up and you don't allow managers to micromanage, you create incredible culture, because culture blossoms from the people who build it from the inside. And if you can build that, that's really, in my opinion, what culture becomes. It becomes the people who are inside of your company. Your first couple hires are your cultural epicenter. And then as you continue hiring, you create this and it blossoms and grows. And the more free flowing ideas and the more you allow people to see, feel, think, and believe in what you do, and go beyond even the business and into what the whole vision and the idea of what you're doing is, that's really when you build, where you build something that's strong, that's going to be long standing, that people are going to defend you, that you'll have staff members who will stay late without even asking to do projects, who will volunteer for projects, and where you have this culture where everybody wants to chip in.
Cool, man. I like that idea of your first hires, your first recruiting, the first people that you recruit are basically the foundation of what your culture is going to be. And I think that there's this misconception that you build culture. Like I think that there's misconception that, like, let's say that you want to have a happy culture, right? You can't go and hire sad people and try to turn them into happy people, right? Instead of, if you want a happy culture, instead of instead of recruiting sad people and trying to make them into happy people, you go and find happy people, right? Do you agree?
Yeah, and put that in your process. Like in our sales process or in our recruitment process, it's not this like straightforward thing with this horrible application that takes 6 hours to write down. And then the person has to like tell you why working for you is the greatest thing in the history of the world when they have no idea yet. One of my pet peeves on applications is, why do you want to work for us? And someone has to put out this like fake 500-word essay on why they care. Like, they don't care yet. They have no idea. They just want to make money. And so in reality, build that into your process. Like when we're getting on with people, it's ask different questions. Like, what makes you tick? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? What do you like? What frustrates you? And then along the way, ask them questions about it, because people are very closed off, and in interviews, they're like this, and they won't say anything. They're very robotic. It's like, what's your worst quality? That I care too much. And you're like, all right, so like, in reality, that's cool, but I know that's not true. So tell me, what is your worst quality? So really get deep with people and understand who they are, understand what makes them tick, because what that does is it helps you bring the right people into your business and your environment. And what that does is it increases retention on your staff. And what that does is reduce costs long-term. So by taking the extra effort to do this kind of stuff, it might take a little bit more time, but it's going to put the culture you want right into your business.
Cool. Awesome, man. And I think that another misconception is that, like as employers, like you as a CEO trying to find people, so as someone trying to build a culture of people and trying to hire people, we think that like all people care about is like money. But in reality, there's things that people care more about than money, right? So like, what people are you going to work, right? So like, if you're going to hire someone, like they probably want to know what type of culture you have and what people they're going to be working with, right? They probably want to get challenged, right? That's why the questions that you said right now, like what makes you tick, what makes you motivated, what makes you inspired, what like what makes you feel challenged. Like people want to be feeling challenged, right? Like they're growing, and then it's the money, right? So like money is not always the most important thing. And like one of the things that I am really clear about is having clarity, right? In clarity on like what are the types of people that I want to hire, right? So I have this like avatar, just like I have an avatar for my ideal clients. I have an avatar for the people that I want to hire, right? That I'm looking for, and I have like all the qualities, like how they should act and everything. And the nice thing about this is just like it happens when you're trying to get a wife, right? Like when you're trying to get a wife, you want to like get really clear on like how you want her to look, how you want her to act, what qualities she wants to have, and then you have to focus on becoming the person that is going to attract her, right? So it's the same thing with, I think, with hiring people and hiring a really good culture, getting really clear on what type of people you want to have in your company, and then making sure that your company and you embody those traits and embody that culture, so that those A players that you're looking for are naturally going to be gravitated towards you. Right? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's true. You have to have your demographics and, more importantly, your psychographics. What makes them tick? What do they think? What do they feel? What do they see? What do they hear? Who are they beyond the superficial layer that they're showing up for the interview with? And so some things that I think work really well are have processes that are intentionally broken and force them to work through it to get on the interview. Like send them a Zoom link that doesn't work. See how they respond. Do they get mad? Do they send you a message about it? How do they get through these challenging tasks and issues? Send them a link to an application, make them fill out the thing, and then it doesn't work. Stuff like that really brings out people who will get frustrated and angry. And I mean, I've had people like tell us how to fix it and what to do and all the processes. And I'm like, all right, this is what I want. I want a process-oriented person who can fix this kind of stuff. And then you get on the interview and you can have these conversations. You can ask out off the wall questions. You can figure out the psychographics really that you want that bring the right people in. And even you can ask questions like, okay, a penguin walks into a bar with a top hat on. You're sitting across the corner on the left. There's a tiger on the bench on the right. What's the first thing you do? It doesn't make sense, but you want to see, like, can this person think on their feet? What do they say? How do they even respond to that? Do they get confused? And for me, if someone can respond to that in a witty and fun way, they're totally in for our culture. And so some of that kind of stuff that isn't traditional, where you ask questions that have no right answer, or ask questions that force them to critically think or think on their feet and become a little witty, I think that brings about the real culture and the real person. And then all of a sudden you see them like uncross their arms and they start like really talking and communicating. And that's when you see the beauty of the person.
Cool. So far, man, it's really cool because I like this was just like flowing, and we've talked about the gentleman's success skills, right? Like I call them the gentleman's success skills. I didn't invent those skills. I just call them like that. And there's four, which are crucial for you to be able to grow any company, scale any company, which are sales and marketing, leadership, recruiting the right people, and productivity, right? So at the beginning, we talked about like productivity, which is basically mastering yourself and being able to be as efficient and as effective as you can and say and do what you say you're going to do. That's, productivity. We talked about sales and not so much about marketing, but sales, right? How you sell your way into everything, and then you have to lead and then recruiting people. So like I'm really liking this conversation, man. It's awesome. So what I want to ask you is, when did you become a husband and a father, right? So you had your journey of getting into health and wellness and your gym and then doing programs and then scaling that. And you told us already a little bit about that journey. So when did you become a husband and a father?
Yeah, so my little girl's 3 years old. She just turned 3 last week on the 18th. And then I met my significant other about 10, almost 10 years ago, 7 years ago ish. And I think when I ultimately became a father was when she was born and I was holding her. So there's this concept of like a woman becomes a mother the second she becomes pregnant. A man doesn't become a father until he sees the child. And I think that's true because as a man, you don't feel as connected to it during the pregnancy phase because it's not inside you. You can't see it yet. You can't play with it. You can't touch it. You can't hear it, all those things. And I think for me, the second I became a true father was when I held her. And so she came out, I'm holding her, and you just feel like these lightning bolts all over your body. It's like this electrical sensation. And it's a feeling that I don't think I've ever felt before in my life. And so that was the moment that I can come back and say, wow, that's the moment I became a father, when I was holding her, when I could feel her, when I could hear her crying. And she truly impacted my life in that moment and changed everything. Everything became about creating the lifestyle that allows my family to flourish, creating the lifestyle that allows my life to flourish, and removing the lifestyle that would potentially put me on the business route 24/7.
Cool. That was awesome, man. And then you've been with your wife 10 years, right? And then you had your first kid 3 years ago. So by the time you had your kid, like, were you already, like, financially successful? That was like, by that time you have already, built a 7-figure company and you're starting your coaching business to help others do the same. How did that work? How does that, like, put this up
Yeah.
into the
So
story?
when we had her, we were basically in a good place financially. We had, the gym was running really well, and we were in the process of transitioning over to making it the online component and removing ourselves from the brick and mortar physical environment. And it was a good choice because we did it 6 months before the pandemic took off. So we were able to sell it, remove ourselves, and bolt on the online component. And so during the pandemic, we grew like 1,800% because we were the only ones who are already ready to go offering the service online with people who were lonely, who were mentally kind of broken. And so that was the moment to where we were able to make that transition and go from a financially good place in one environment to an even better place in the next environment. And one of my tenets growing up, because when I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't grow up with things. We would grow up fairly poor. We didn't have anything really. And so one of my big things was, when I bring a child into this world, I wanted to bring a child into this world who was comfortable, and a child who never had to worry about anything, and a child who didn't have to struggle, and a child who I didn't have to look at her and said, we can't afford that. And so that was one of my big tenets in bringing her into this world. It's like, hey, okay, I'm ready now. We're comfortable. We're safe. Everything's good. She's not going to have to struggle. She's not going to have to be in an environment where she wonders or worries.
Cool. So was your wife like a big factor to your success? Was she like your partner 7 years before you had your kid? Like, all of those 7 years, was she hustling and grinding with you to build this, what you're experiencing right now?
Yeah, she's built everything with me. We haven't killed each other yet, so it's been going pretty well so far. She built the gym with me. She started a blog that started this whole thing with me. We moved into the online environment. She manages our clients now, so she's like the fulfillment person who kind of oversees everything in that aspect. So she's been a big help in creating the ability to create better processes and become more attentive of what we're doing. And I think it helped me a lot too along the way, because the way I originally am is I'm very like, let's do this. I can sell my vision and idea to anybody and anything, but I always had a problem with follow through when I was kind of building this thing and growing into who I am. And she's really good at follow through, and she's really good at systems and really good at just paying particular attention to make sure things happen. And so I learned from her how to install that into myself. And so I think ultimately it made me better having her as part of this thing, and being able to do this thing together.
Cool. So yes, diligence. Nice,
Yeah.
man. So man, this is really exciting. So you are a gentleman, right? So there's two ways that you become a gentleman, right? And a gentleman meaning like achieving true freedom and being successful, happy, and fulfilled. I'm sure that you feel that way. You feel successful, happy, and fulfilled, and you're barely starting. Like you're really young. You're probably going to keep on growing this your empire and your family and your love and everything, even and make it even bigger, right? So like though there's two ways to become a gentleman and achieve true freedom and success, happiness, and fulfillment. The first one, which is would be the perfect one, which seems that was the one the ride that you went through, the journey that you went through is getting your physical freedom, working on yourself first, realizing that the most important thing is like your health and your wellness, right? Because without that, you're never gonna be able to do anything. Then emotional and spiritual freedom, right? Getting to know who you are, getting to know like what are you gonna do, what's your purpose, and all of that, and mastering yourself. And then it's financial freedom, which you got before you started a family, and try to go for your sentimental freedom, which is starting a family. So this would be the perfect way: physical, emotional, and spiritual, financial, and then sentimental, which is family. So like, and then the second way is for men who fuck up like me, right? So I'm 18 years old and like I don't know how to sell, I don't know how to make money, I don't even know who I am, I don't even know how to love myself, I don't even know that I'm supposed to take care of myself, and I'm like doing drugs and alcohol and stuff. And like I find myself with a family at 18 years of age, with a wife, with a daughter to care for, needing to make money, needing to learn where I'm going, like what I'm gonna do, and I'm having to achieve all of those four freedoms all at the same time, which gets really crazy, right? And like the second way to do it, which is how men who fuck up need to do it, is physical freedom, realizing that it's like you have to put yourself first, then emotional and spiritual freedom, putting yourself first again, and then sentimental freedom, and then financial freedom, right? So because the way that you do, the reason that these two changes, sentimental and financial at last, is because there's this idea that you don't have business problems, you have personal problems reflecting in your business. So if you don't have these three handled in your life, if you don't are not physically well, right, and healthy, if you don't know who you are and you don't know your purpose, and like you haven't mastered yourself, and if you have a really bad relationship with your kid and with your wife, like you're never going to be able to make it in business, right? So what do you think about the idea that you don't have business problems and you probably have personal problems reflecting in your business?
Yeah, I think it's true. I think a lot of people who have the inability, even for me in the beginning, it was like my follow through wasn't very good. So I didn't have a lot of systems and processes that I would build. So I would be able to sell it, but fulfilling was the hard part. And so, and that's a personal thing where you don't learn how to essentially manage your time and manage yourself. And so I think when you fix these personal problems, they become gone in your business, and these little personal problems become business problems, and then business problems become really big problems as you grow and scale. And so I think the earlier you can work on yourself, the more likely it is you won't have to deal with a lot of these problems and issues that surface, because in the beginning in business, it's really just it's you. So your business is a reflection of you, and as it grows, your business becomes a reflection of who you become. And ultimately, I think if you can see business as an evolving organism, just like yourself, you can create a business that scales and grows as you scale and grow your own self.
Awesome. So awesome. I have a lot to talk about with that, with that you said. But first of all, before I ask you what I want to ask you, I want to ask you, like, is there a specific way that you prioritize the different areas of your life? Like I call them freedom, right? Physical freedom, emotional and spiritual freedom, sentimental and financial. And these are like my different aspects of my life, and there's a specific way that I prioritize them. Do you have, like specific, maybe you call them different aspects of your life and a way in which you prioritize them?
Yeah, I prioritize what I do and based on my 6 pillars. So I mental health is first, the way I feel, the way I think, and ultimately I want to just be, which is allowing me to not need, which is allowing me to not want. I don't need to be validated. I don't need to feel validated. And so I'm just allowed to be, which is amazing because you can be with your emotions. It's the concept of the empty mind. So when you sit there and focus on your breathing, when you do yoga or whatever it is you do to focus, you can just sit there with no thoughts. In the beginning, it's learning, it's like leaves on a stream. They're passing by. You can see the thoughts. You don't fight them. You don't fight happiness, sadness, anger. You allow them to pass by and know that they'll come and go. And then the second thing I look at is my social health, especially with the family. Am I spending enough time? Am I putting enough time into that environment? And because that environment ultimately makes me happy. And then the next thing is sleep. If mental health, social health, and sleep are in order, I'm on point and I can be creative and I can do everything I need to do. And so it's like the other day I woke up and I was tired. I was yawning. So I went back to sleep for another hour. It was great. And the ability, some people think, oh, you can't sleep in, you have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. And in reality, it's like, no, if I wake up and I feel like miserable, the rest of the day is going to be miserable. So sleep becomes a priority. And then nutrition. And for me, when I look at nutrition, it's ultimately not about like diets and all this other stuff. It's like, how can I create cool and fun meals in the kitchen? Because for a long time, I struggled with nutrition. I was like, diets suck, food sucks, nutrition sucks, everything doesn't taste good. And ultimately I realized that I had to get good at cooking. And so nutrition for me is about cooking. It's new meals. It's preparing new stuff for myself and my family and really getting there and understanding how to cook a good steak. I made beef stroganoff the other night, how to make lobster. And that becomes a fun little thing because it taps into mental health too. You get in the kitchen, you start creative, it's designing, it's out of your business element. And it's this new thing you get to focus on. And sometimes you screw it up and that's okay because you celebrate the process you used to create that. And then the last thing I focus on is fitness ultimately. And fitness for me is, I hate going to the gym. I don't necessarily like sweating my own sweat. So I go to jujitsu because it's fun. It's engaging. It's a martial art. It's very humbling. It's ego shattering. And I do Muay Thai because of the same thing. They're the things that you can do that put you in the element to where you know you're never going to be good at it. And that's what I want in my fitness. And then obviously my last thing, we have habits that everything comes into, but my last thing is wealth. Am I putting myself in a place to where I'm not just building wealth now? Am I building generational wealth? So is what I'm making going into an environment to where it's going to benefit my daughter for the rest of her life? Am I putting money into the right environments? Am I spending it unwisely now? So that way people, and I can't use it in the future, or my daughter can't use it in the future. So wealth for me is, how can I build this into a generational environment to where it's not just what I'm building, it's what my family's going to be building for their kids and their kids and their kids. And it becomes something they can stand on for a long period of time.
Cool. I like the idea that you describe generational wealth not only as the money that you're going to leave behind, but the environment that you're going to build for your daughter.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, so the other thing that I wanted to ask you was about mental, right? So like the mental aspect of your life and being, right? And like realizing that you are an ever growing and expanding and accelerating human being, that you have to grow and expand and evolve and upgrade yourself at every level. That in order to go from 6 figures to 7 figures, like the person that you are has to change. Like you have to grow and evolve and have to become something different. In order to go from 7 figures to 8 figures, like you have to change and evolve and grow into something different. In order to go past that, like there's these levels, right, to business, and there's levels to who you are and who you're being, right? So which is what you mentioned, which is one of the first things that you focus on every single day, the mental aspect of your life and just being. So can you talk a little bit more about like what you do? Like how do you make sure that you're always becoming something? How do you make sure that you're always upgrading yourself and evolving and growing? And like what are the, I don't know, habits or activities that you do to make sure that you're being something greater every single day and to prioritize your mental health?
Yeah, I think for me, it's recognizing, for me, ultimately, mental health becomes an event of mastering your emotions. And mastering your emotions for me isn't about like putting myself into environments to where they become stressors. For me, I think, and this might be controversial in what some people think, but I think like sitting in cold showers and stuff like that to put yourself in physical strain is more of like a first world problem. It maybe helps you focus and breathe mentally, initially short term. But I think when we have to introduce stimulus to be able to enhance our ability to think clearly and act clearly, it creates a sort of addictive environment where you need the stimulus to be able to grow and become who you want to become. So for me, it's being able to master emotions at all times. it doesn't matter what environment you're in. It's being able to come back and think in the present moment and being able to question what you're doing and question yourself internally. And it's if, say, for example, say I'm in an environment and someone comes at me and they're yelling and screaming, I can say, I noticed that this person's coming at me. They're yelling and screaming. I noticed that my heart's starting to race. I noticed that I'm starting to get a little bit agitated. And then I can pull myself out of that. Okay, I can move myself into a new environment. I can move myself to master my emotion that I'm currently experiencing and pull myself into a neutral state so I can interact with this human being that's coming at me in an agitated state. So for me, it's a product of 24/7 management and thought about how I'm feeling and thinking. And a lot of time, especially for guys, we're taught to just be strong, to not think about it, to pull it down deep inside. But really, when you have an emotion, if you start thinking about the way you're feeling and why, that's mental amount and emotional mastery. That's when you start to become you. That's when you start to just become there, when you don't need validation, when you don't need stimulus, when you don't need anything to make yourself ultimately better, because you're able to question and move yourself and change your environment because you're so present and aware.
Cool. And I think I agree with you. Like I do the cold showers and I jump 4 a.m. as soon as I wake up into into my bathtub full of cold water and ice. And I do breathing and meditation. And like I do find myself being addicted to that. Like I do find myself having to do that to be able to have control and emotional mastery, right? And to be able to think clearly and be this high performing person. Um, and like when I don't do that, I'm not able to like think clearly and be this high performing person and be really calm and aware and just present with my emotions. So what you're talking about, like I like it, right? So mastering yourself is not, it's not about requiring, it's not about needing external stimuli, but about learning how to just question your emotions, like question, like noticing and being aware of what you're feeling and asking why. But like how do you build that habit?
Yeah, I think it starts by writing it down. So one thing that I like to have clients do in the beginning is we write down what are the emotions we're experiencing in a mood log. So I have a mood log worksheet we give to our clients. So they write down the emotion they were feeling, the event on how it happened, how it made them feel, and why it made them feel that way. And so they write this down on a daily basis, and then they basically summarize it. So they start thinking about it. Wow, I had this, and this event. I felt this way. Well, why did that happen though? What made me feel that way? What was the stimulus? What was the environment? Why? What happened? And so over time, they learn to start doing this automatically. And so for me, it's about, in the beginning, in order to externalize the way you feel internally, you have to externalize it. You have to write it down, because talking through it isn't enough for people in the beginning. They get confused, they get lost in their own thoughts, and it's a disaster. So in the beginning, by teaching people how to utilize a mood log and how to write down how they're feeling and how to really write down the why and understand the mechanisms behind it, they start to learn how to internally analyze. And then so over time, what we'll do is we'll start removing the mood log, and then we'll start doing a daily summary in like an audio recording, or we'll start doing a daily summary that they just do in front of the mirror. And so that puts them in a place to where they start to begin to learn how to make this an automatic process. So that way, when things do happen, you're able to snap out of it and be like, wait, what's going on? And it's like the other day, I was pumping gas, and it was the story I was talking about. A guy was running at me mad because apparently I got in front of him on accident. And so at that moment, I'm like, oh, there's a guy running really fast at me. I'm getting out of my car. My daughter's in the seat next to me. And I know at that moment, I'm like, if I become agitated here, I notice he's agitated. If I become agitated and angry, she's going to suffer, because I'm going to end up getting in trouble for this. And so then you ground yourself. You're okay. So what do I do in this situation? Okay, I can stand my ground. I can quell this person down, or I can leave the situation. And it removes the ego, and it removes the need to want, and the need to be validated from these external stimulus.
Cool. I like how you have mentioned multiple times that like there's no need for you to prove yourself. There's no need for you to be, like validate yourself with anyone or anything. And like you're worthy just as you are, right?
Exactly. And I think that's important. And a lot of time people need that validation to feel special. And the more you need that validation, the more and more you need it. And the more you need to feel special from external stimulus. But once you learn that you can just be, that there's no reason to need, that there's no reason to want, that there's no reason to need validation, you learn how to live inside your own head, and you learn how to live inside your own body, and you learn how to live at peace. It's like the way of the peaceful warrior. I can be a warrior of my emotions. I can master my emotions, and I can pursue my own destiny, my own dreams without needing to want, without needing to be validated, without needing that stimulus.
Cool. Awesome, man. So we're almost to the end of this conversation, of this podcast. In which we have been discussing about, some of the keys to a life filled with success, happiness, and fulfillment. And when we get to the end of the podcast, I like to end with 5 questions that I get that I want to ask you, man. So can I go ahead and ask you the first one?
Yeah, for sure.
So the first one is, if you could travel back in time to give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would you say to him?
I'd probably tell him, stay the course. People are going to tell you that you shouldn't do this. People are going to tell you what you're doing is dumb. People are going to tell you you should follow the status quo, but ultimately what you do ends up being exactly where you need to be.
Cool. I'm exactly where I need to be. Actually, that's one of my affirmations, man. Because I find myself comparing myself to other people's journeys, or wanting, like you said, like there's no need to want, there's no need to need, or wanting to look like have more, wanting to be further ahead into my journey. But awesome, man. So the next question would be, what is one mindset shift or one breakthrough that you've made that you can share that has allow you to level up your life, your marriage, and your business?
Yeah, the mindset for me shift that really changes the game for me is ultimately the fact that you can be present in your own head, and you can master your emotions just by questioning yourself. So questioning how you're feeling, questioning why you're feeling that. And the more you learn to do that, the more you learn to be and live at peace. And ultimately, I think that creates calmness. So when you meet someone who's ultimately calm, when like the house can be burning down and they can still sit and be working, not doing anything, nothing's bothering them, when people are screaming and they're able to maintain this sort of internal calm, that's ultimately what mastering that domain. And that's ultimately what I think we can achieve by questioning our emotions and really allowing them to be present within us. I think what really kills people is they try to block anger, they try to block sadness, they try to block depression, they try to block all these emotions they deem as negative. But in reality, we need to embrace them. Like, hey, I noticed I'm feeling a little down today. Why is that? Like, what's going on? So that way you can learn how to be present and be aware and be okay with the fact that you are feeling that way, that it's not bad, that it's part of living, it's part of life, it's part of being at peace with who you are.
Cool. And then when you do question those emotions and how you're feeling, when you question it, and not like try to block it or try to run away from it, but you sit with it and are present with it and question it, you're able to uncover stories that that are like running around in your head that most of the time are not true.
Exactly. And then you can question that. So you can be like, hey, so I noticed I'm feeling a little down. Why am I feeling down? Oh, well, I'm never going to figure this out. I just can't do it. And then you say, well, is that true though? Like, well, what's the worst that can happen if you keep trying? Well, maybe I never figure it out. What's the best that could happen? Maybe I create the best thing in the world. What's the probable thing? I'm going to figure it out eventually. All right. Okay. Well, I guess I've just talked myself into feeling better about the situation I'm in. And that's a sort of acceptance commitment therapeutic modality where we start to question the scenarios that could possibly manifest as a result of what we're thinking, because part of the human condition is to be like, oh, it's going to be the worst thing in the history of the world. We automatically go straight to the negative and as bad as it could possibly be. But if we learn to question that into scenarios, we learn to put ourselves in an environment where it's not always going to be bad. And we learn to recognize that most of the time it really isn't that bad.
Nice, man. Awesome. So 3 more questions. What is one strategy, tactic, or tool that you use to have clarity in your life?
For
Clarity,
me,
tool, or tactic.
for me, it's communication. To create clarity, and it's the same thing as what you do internally. If you can't figure something out, start questioning it. When you look at Toyota has a process where they ask why. They can continuously ask why when a system won't work until they can figure out what the problem is. In psychology, there's the downward arrow technique where you continuously ask why until you figure out the core belief. So one of the things that you can do when you can't figure out these processes is to continuously ask why, to question. I think in life, and this answer, I think I've answered everything with just ask why. But in life, we forget that the idea of growing is to be able to ask questions and be comfortable asking questions and be comfortable being wrong. because I think one of the most important things we do when something's not working and to help us move past it is to be like, okay, why is it not working? Well, because of this. Okay, well, why is that not working? Oh, because of this. Well, what's going on there? Well, because this is happening. Okay, well, what do we do with this? Well, we can do this. And then ultimately you build yourself a process that allows you to move forward and move past it.
Cool. So there, yeah, cool. So I actually heard of this 7 layers of why. So you ask why 7 times until you get to like the core, and it's supposed to be like 7 times. So basically, one of the strategies that you have to have clarity in your life is just questioning everything and asking why. Awesome, man. So last one, your 30-second thoughts on like tracking, measuring, and KPIs, right? Not in business, but in your life. Because I mean, in business, like it's a must, right? Like tracking and having KPIs is a must. So what do you think about tracking and having KPIs and measuring other areas of your life?
I think it's important. For me, I don't want to get to a point where I'm overanalyzing every aspect. Like I'm a proponent against having like 8 different apps and all this technology to measure and manage what I'm doing, but I will keep track of what I'm doing over time. So I'll keep track of sleep quality. So subjective level, how was my sleep last night? Oh, I think I felt good, or I woke up tired. How many hours did I sleep? Oh, I slept 8 hours. Oh, I slept 6 hours. And then I'll pay attention to, okay, what was my mental state? Was I emotionally stable? Was I emotionally neutral? Was I emotionally feeling low, or was I emotionally feeling high? And then I'll keep track of like my social parameters. Did I spend enough time with my family? How much time did I spend with my daughter and my significant other and everything? So that way I can look at that and over time be like, okay, overall I slept pretty well. My quality was high. My mental state was fairly neutral. So it's where I want to be. I spent time with my family. And then you can always pay attention to those parameters to continue pushing the needle on ultimately where you want to be the most successful. And you can track how much money did I make and stuff like that in terms of your wealth, or what habits did I put into play that really made me successful that day. I think a lot of that can work as well too. But for me, it's keeping it simple. What are the 3 most important metrics that are important to me? Because honestly, I don't want to spend time analyzing and tracking all these metrics all the time, 24/7. So I want to make sure that I can do it in a couple minutes. It can be easy to analyze. And over time, I can see whether or not I was positive or neutral or negative in terms of where I'm headed.
Cool. Nice, man. Well, I'm pretty sure that the audience will think the same about this episode and about you. But I completely love everything that you said, man. Thank you very much for sharing your advice and your wisdom and your knowledge. And like I want to know more about you. So if I want to know more about you, if I want to get more from you, and I don't know, be like in your circle, be in your tribe and everything, like where would I go? Like how can I get more of you?
Yeah, you can friend request me on Facebook. My Facebook name is just facebook.com/Chandler SAF. And if you want to follow my business public page, it's just Chandler-Culture of Care. So you can connect with me there, send me a message. If you want to be part of our Brain Code Rewire or our health programs, you can go to our weight loss, mental health, and sleep support group, which is facebook.com/groups/Chan's Logic. If you want to be part of our business programs, Compassion Conversations, you can go join the group there, facebook.com/groups/Beyond Method. But best part, just friend request me and we can hang out. And I do live videos all the time and I talk about communication and all this stuff. So I think it's a good environment to be in.
Awesome, man. We're gonna have all of those links there on the description of this podcast. And thank you very much for being here, man. It was excellent getting to hang out with you and getting to talk a little bit with you and getting to experience your wisdom and your knowledge and everything. So thank you very much, man. And I'll see you later.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for watching the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms